I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, August the 7th, brought to you in part by Zactran. Bovine respiratory disease steals pounds. Zactran pounds back. Remember to observe your 35-day withdrawal period after treatment. For more information, go to Zactran.com or visit with your BI representative. Fed cattle selling from $1 to $1.03. Big gains, about $3 straight up live there. And started early in the week on Tuesday already. They hadn't sold much in the northern plains, and then on Thursday they came out bidding $1.01 in Kansas before the board even opened, and they ended up selling cattle up in the north at 103. They're a lot more current than the south is, but they keep dipping down into Kansas, which is actually has a higher grading percentage of choice or better than Nebraska does, because they're still backed up some. But they keep dipping into those cattle, and Kansas is doing pretty good. Texas is the last frontier that is really dealing with heavy cattle and having trouble getting those marketed, but they're catching up too. So this is not going to last until the end of the year. And like I've been saying, likely there weren't as many calves from last year's calf crop to feed, although a lot of those cattle maybe ended up going out on pasture and staying out there longer because when they got ready to market those cattle this year, they got right into the COVID, and so instead of putting those cattle on feed at lighter weights, they made some really hard, long-tailed, heavy weight yearlings that are going to feed really well as they put them on feed now. But you know, talking to some guys, you know, we talked about maybe being backed up 1 million head, and perhaps the hole in placements during the COVID was almost that big. And, you know, we're just going to have to get through it before we see where we're at. But, you know, some of the guys I talked to are indeed right. Even if we had 1 million head, if you scattered them out among all the feedlots that we have in the country, that's not that many, really. But, well, we seem to be getting along a lot better here marketing our fed cattle, and the packers continue to buy several cattle cash, and maybe they're still putting up a good front here because they're wanting to resist this 50-14. And as powerful as NCBA is, they haven't killed the 50-14 movement or the minimum negotiated cash mandate, because it's still there. They've got bills up in Congress and in the House there, or in the Congress and in the Senate to get that done. And I'm hearing from Washington that the 50-14 movement is actually gaining steam since the middle of last week, when NCBA basically thumbed their nose at the USDA's initial investigative report that gave us the blueprint of how to fix things. You know, they couldn't really pin anything as of yet, though the investigation is ongoing, but they couldn't pin anything on the packers that would really hold. But they said, hey guys, if you guys want to fix this, fix it yourself. Here's how you do it. You mandate a minimum negotiated cash requirement. You use mandatory price reporting to monitor and oversee that. It's the same thing that I've been talking about here for 6 months, guys. But they showed how to do that. They encouraged it. They all but said, here's what you guys need to do. And it was stamped with a USDA letterhead at the top, guys. You don't just thumb your nose at that kind of stuff. We've got more senators signing on to that bill. One of the latest is the great senator from Louisiana, Foghorn Leghorn, John Kennedy. If you don't like him, I mean, you just don't like good country people like that. And I tell you what, he's got analogies that keep you thinking, and he's a great American. And he signed on to that bill out of Louisiana, and he's just one of many that have signed on here of late. And I tell you what, this deal is gaining steam, and they might have kind of wished that they would have, NCBA I say, might have wished that they would have negotiated a little bit with the northern guys, because they had watered that down before they got to the meetings, to where they would allow it to be done regionally, and let a different percentage set in each region. But they got knocked down, and now maybe something a whole lot stronger, what we originally wanted, the 50-14, making all your large packing facilities by half of their week sales in the cash market. So, I just love to see that happen. Absolutely love to see that happen. I was meeting on Thursday night with some cattle industry people from around the Amarillo Canyon area there, and we were visiting about that. But it's going to change things if they get this deal done. It's going to change things down here in the Southern Plains a lot, but something's got to change. We got to change something. I tell you what, if we don't, it's just going to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle, and that is not good for the industry. It's not good for your cattle feeders, but it's especially not good for your backgrounders and your producers there. But I'm going to be heading up to Iowa next weekend and going to participate in the Governor's Charity Steer Show up at Ames. They normally have that with the Iowa State Fair, but COVID canceled that fair. But going to be participating in that. I'm on the Monroe County team. They always have an issue that they push, but everything that we're doing here is to raise money for the Ronald McDonald House of Iowa, and we're sure going to be doing that. But our issue that we're pushing is exactly this: more negotiated cash trade. Our steer is called Trust Buster. We've got a really cool t-shirt that you guys might have seen on social media that has a monopoly board. We're trying to prevent a monopoly from taking over the cattle industry, but really cool, and I hope that it gains a little more strength. We're going to be right there in Chuck Grassley's neighborhood, up there in the middle of Iowa, and I'm excited about going up there and participating in that event, and especially since it's for such a good charity. But we've seen rains around all over the region. We're in some of the best situation we've been in as far as our forage for a long time. So these guys have been able to keep those feeder cattle turned out there. It's a slower growing, but it actually it's so much cheaper. In a lot of cases it's half as cheap to put pounds out on grass than it is shutting them up into a feed yard. It just doesn't happen quite as quick. But you get to bring part of that back, because whenever you put those green grass yearlings with a tick of age on them on feed, then they really gain their heads off. So you get some of that back. But I was talking to a friend of mine up in Omaha. He said it's been raining up there. The corn crop looks absolutely fantastic. We're going to have another bin buster, and the corn hasn't been worth much for a long time. Most all your on-farm storage is taken. Most of your rented storage is taken, and they've got to do something with this corn. Most of your farmer feeders up there that have the ability have decided they're going to feed as much corn as they can and try to add value to it there. Some of them are banking on a low US dollar into expanding our exports, and I indeed will, but we've got plenty of stockpiles to fill those orders, so that we might end up getting into a situation where corn comes up some. But right now your corn is sitting at just over $3 a bushel, about $3.10. And then you've got about a 60-cent negative basis up there in the Corn Belt. That's getting down to some pretty cheap grain, guys, and awful cheap cost of gains. And talking to some people on Thursday there, they said, some of these cattle, they seem so high, but they will actually pencil out. When you're talking about how cheap this corn actually is, some of these farmer feeders that do a lot of the work themselves, they'll get their cost of gains down into the mid-60s. Guys in the Southern Plains and these big commercial feedlots, they can't even dream of something like that. But if you've got the corn right there on the farm, you've got the equipment, you've got a pen or two sitting out there, you can put those pounds on really cheap. And then guys, they've fed some of these green grass yearlings. I've been saying they'll gain 4 something a day. Some of these guys are plugging in 5 pounds plus a day, figuring their break evens, and that's why you see them giving these whorehouse prices for these green grass yearlings, especially the bigger ones. But some of your other ones would rather buy a weaned calf weighing in the 6s or low 7s, and they'll just eat that much more corn. But it's quite a deal here, and guys are betting on the come, both feeding these cattle and themselves and putting them on feed. But it's a situation where they might have a better chance coming out there than they will any other way. They got some government payments there for their crops, and it might kind of hold things together at least. But let's talk about your board on Thursday. Your August live cattle futures up 32 cents at 102.62. October down 47 at 106.97. Going out from there on your out front live cattle contracts down 70 to up 42 cents. So a little bit of volatility there. August feeder cattle down 132, so they come off some of the big gains we've seen. Your August spot feeder cattle contract 143.47, still $3-4 a premium to what our index levels are, and these feeder cattle have been higher every day here for the last 2 or 3 weeks. September down 60 at 145.87. You're going out from there, and they were all down from 52 cents to $1.12 when you're out front feeder cattle contracts. Fat cattle trade, I talked a little bit about it on the open there, and I tell you what, it's been pretty good. We saw a moderate trade in your northern plains areas. We saw just a trickle of trade in the southern plains, but it was all higher. Iowa, 3,400 head confirmed on Thursday from 102 to 103 and $163 dressed. Those are all higher. Nebraska, 4,300 head confirmed, 102 to 103, 163 all the way up to 168 dressed. Kansas, only about 750 head from $1 to $1.01 and 163 there. And just a few loads there in Texas, all at $1. But box beef cutout values were higher here late in the week, and we just don't have the best demand because we're lacking food service. We need food service here, and you know, we got to get these restaurants open and let those people do what they do. And people are dying to go out and get in groups and enjoy somebody else cooking for them rather than having to do it all themselves. But as good as our exports are, if we had our food service back, wow, we would really be doing something, and we could crank things up, and likely our fat cattle would get quite a bit higher. But boy, I tell you what, you give these bureaucrats the power to shut you down, and they just get, the more you give them, the more they press, and they're just power hungry here, and just unbelievable. And likely I've said, you know, that most of us just aren't as scared of that virus as we used to be. You know, I'll admit, when this deal first come out, and you know, they were talking about shutting down the state lines and things like that, and I was out traveling, it was a little scary when you go out and you're traveling on the interstate highways. There's no place to get off. Can't even go to the restroom or anything else because they had the rest areas chained off, and you couldn't go into anything. You could stop and pay at the pump, but that's about it. But there's just too many stories of people getting over this stuff, and I know I've been talking about it quite a bit, but there was a story that I said I would talk, and you know, I ain't gonna call any names, but you know, I got a friend of mine that we used to frequent a watering hole there in the Amarillo area once a week or something, and this guy had a lot of age on him. You know, he's not a Feeder Flash gang member, so I don't have to worry about it, but a lot of age on him, and he'd admit to you he was just a drunk, and you know, he wouldn't weigh 80 or 90 pounds soaking wet, and I tell you what, I mean, just a sop. I mean, I've seen him sit right across from me for hours and hours on end. I mean, just ridiculous. I don't know how the hell he does it, but he just, you know, and he'd admit it to you. You know, he doesn't eat much, and he likes to drink a lot of beer. But you know, thin and poor looking and old, and you know, you just wondered every time you saw him, that was the last time you was going to see him. He tested positive COVID, and all of us that knew him just marked him off. You know, we figured it was over. And then a few days ago, I saw one of the other guys that meets up with us, and I said, well, did you talk to old so-and-so? And said, hell yeah, he's feeling great. He's ready to go drink some more beer. Wow. You know, if a guy like that can beat this COVID, why are young, healthy people scared to death to leave their house? You know, they've got treatments out there, guys. Box beef cutout values, choice cuts, 204.66 on Thursday afternoon, up $1.09. Selects 192.01, up 119. Your slaughter so far for the week through Thursday, 464,000. That's 10,000 off of last week and 19,000 less than the same week a year ago. As I told you on an earlier visit, we were dark in one plant earlier this week, and they're still struggling a little bit with some of these plant workers, and it's mostly the unions that are pushing them to do it, wanting hazard pay and threatening walkouts and all that kind of thing. And we're not out of the woods on that stuff at all. And I tell you what, stuff's kind of risky. But your actual slaughter for the week ending July 25th come out. Look at these average dressed steer carcass weights, 903 pounds. That's 4 pounds bigger than the previous report, 34 pounds bigger than the same report a year earlier. Wow. So we're not through all these big cattle. Everybody can say, oh, we've got them all cleaned up and everything. We wouldn't have these weights so big if we were cleaned up through them. Your July average steer carcasses averaged over 30 pounds bigger than the year ago. So, you know, we've got some work to do to get through them, but it's not as bad as it was, 6 weeks or 2 months ago. Let's talk about what else is going on in the industry. I told you on the last visit that RealMax Pathway to Profits webinar, free webinar on August 11th in the evening there is available to you guys. Just go to realmax.net and learn about that mineral program that they have there, and I owed the guys there kind of a clarification on that. I said on the last visit that it was a new product, and said, no, we've been around for 15 years or more, and we've had plenty of trials and results and tested this stuff, so we know what we're talking about, and we can give you some good facts about maybe a way to increase your profits. So there, I did that housekeeping right there. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Thursday sitting at 140.29. That's up 59 cents. How about your feeder cattle, your big feeder cattle auctions, high volume sales? Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, Salina, Kansas, biggest sale they've had for a while, 4,300 head. We've just about cleaned up all those vast pastures in Kansas and northern Oklahoma. I tell you what, they've had to be off of those, and unless you own the ground, and that's not real prevalent out in that area. And there are a few cows and calves turned out there, but for the most part, just seasonal yearlings. But Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, feeder steers weighing 7 to 1,000 pounds, $2 to $4 higher than just a week ago. Steer calves $1 to $2 higher. Feeder heifers $1 to $4 higher. Pratt, Kansas, they had that big special a week ago before the big winter Dodge City specials there. But winter livestock in Pratt, 2,600 head. They hadn't sold them all yet. Feeder steers $2 to $6 higher than the higher market they had on the special a week ago when you had all your high volume buyers in town or in that area for the big specials. I tell you what, this market is stout, 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 and I told you earlier about the cheap corn and why it is. But other classes other than feeder steers were not well tested, but lots and lots of load lots of feeder steers, and like I said, $2 to $6 higher. How about El Dorado, Kansas there? 3,000 there. That's a seasonal sale barn, and they're getting their full jolt out of the season there. But look at this report from El Dorado there. They're not reported anywhere else by a third party, but we're reporting them here on the Feeder Flash. Feeder steers here sure look $2 to $7 higher. Feeder heifers $2 to $4 higher. How about Lamona, Iowa? Lamona Livestock there always sells those M.L. McCray cattle there. He was my former neighbor up there in northwest Missouri, and I've told you guys many times if you headed north out of Maysville on State Route A, there was two kinds of reputations. You went by my hodgepodge pissant deal, and then you went a ways farther and you got to the other kind of reputation deal. M.L. buys the best calves that he can buy to put on a kind of a long backgrounding program that he has. He really knows how to do it, but he leaves some good in those cattle, and a lot of those people up there in the Midwest have fed those cattle, and that's why they bring such a big price. But you look at these quotes here out of Lamona, I'm going to tell you about them. 306 steers, average 952, from 135.5 to 135.75. Wow. How about Broken Bow, Nebraska? Broken Bow livestock there. Just recently got those reporting automatically again here. 252 steers in Broken Bow, Nebraska. Weighed 886 at 142 and a quarter. But I talked to them at Valentine Livestock, and man, you know how they can sell them in Valentine, high as anywhere in the world. How about the Powderhorn Ranch there? 130 head of steers, weighed 852 at 152.60. They better gain 5 something a day and 60 something cent cost of gain there, and they better not stub their toe coming down the chute or anything else, because that is a full tilt right there. How about Stephen Dent steers? 131 of them, weighed 905 at 146.75. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.